an automated message from Elections Canada. Your poll location has been changed.
Well, they are called robocalls. Now Elections Canada is investigating after a series of deceptive calls were made to several ridings in an apparent effort to influence the vote during the last election.
Malloway's riding now joins a growing list of some 34 ridings all across the country where Liberals or the NDP allege dirty tricks, phony calls, trying to drive down their vote and help Conservatives. Many of those calls went through a company called Rack 9, which worked for Conservative candidates, including Stephen Harper.
I have absolutely no knowledge on anything about these calls.
31,000 Canadians have taken their stories to Elections Canada.
The evidence is mounting that the 41st general election may have been hijacked by the most comprehensive electoral fraud in our nation's history.
There are now allegations that these calls were received in at least 40 ridings, many of them in vote-rich Ontario, and a handful of those races were close calls, where the outcome was decided by fewer than 1,000 votes.
You are denying somebody their fundamental right to cast their ballot in a free and fair election by mischievous means, deliberately mischievous means.
A 23-year-old staffer named Michael Sona resigned shortly after the robocall story broke.
Something happened to the benefit of Conservative campaigns. In order for it to happen, they had to have money, they had to have organization, and they had to have voter lists.
Hello there everyone, this is Dan Dix reporting for Press for Truth TV. We are currently down at Old City Hall today to cover the protest into the robocall scandal. Rallies are happening all across the country today in over 30 different cities. So we're here today to document it and to speak to some of the protesters to find out how they feel about the robocall scandal.
From what we heard, there's up to 77 ridings that have been affected. If he has nothing to hide, then do the public inquiry. I mean, if he says it's like money wasted and stuff, it's not money wasted more than the F-35 they bought for the military.
Elections Canada and the RCMP have had this information since Election Day. This is going to get drug out for years and years. Who knows what's going to happen by then? We're going to have all these draconian laws put in place by then. Just push for something to happen right now. Myself personally, I think there should be a all-new election, not only by-elections in those affected regions. Just the fact that those calls did happen calls for a whole new election in my mind.
This goes beyond dirty tricks. This is actually manipulation of a federal election, which in Canadian history we've seen done before. Manipulating the outcome of a federal election is nothing new for Harper and the Conservatives. They've got a history of it. When Preston Manning was running against Jean Chrétien, what ended up happening was the CSIS formed a group of neo-Nazis and signed them all up to the Reform Party, leaked it out to the papers 3 weeks before the election, and Reform ended up losing official opposition status by 1 seat. Shortly afterwards, they had a leadership election where Preston Manning was thrown out and a young Western premier by the name of Stephen Harper took over the Reform Party and merged it with the Conservatives, who'd only picked up 3 seats in that election.
Well, we're here to say that democracy is very important, and the Conservative being soft on crime. If they really believe in tough legislation, then they should support New Democrats' call for to turn over all evidence to both Election Canada or even RCMP. And we also think that it's important that we change the law so that Election Canada have more power. That would prevent any fraudulent behavior in the future. Election Canada must have all the power it needs to get all the evidence that is necessary. This kind of election fraud cannot be tolerated, and if the Conservatives are not being soft on crime, then they need to get to the bottom of it, investigate, and turn over those criminals that defrauded a lot of voters.
What kind of things do you think Canadians can do or should be doing at this point if they were affected by this and want to have their voices heard?
Well, the key thing is to immediately contact Election Canada so the Election Canada can get to the bottom of these fraudulent behavior. And secondly, talk to your local member of parliament and say, what are you doing? There's a vote coming up in the House of Commons to change the election law to give Election Canada more power. Are you supporting it? If not, why not?
I believe in the social contract. The social contract provides that the government or those who empower the plutocracy, whoever they may be, is bestowed with the authority to govern by us, as long as they provide for us fairly and safely. Fairly. Fair elections. We demand fair elections. If you have an intent to suppress voter turnout because you do not believe in democracy, the fundamental nature of authoritarianism or neo-fascism is to suppress democracy because you want to control it. So, if you suppress voter turnout, you might be a fascist.
My name is John Allen. I'm the lead organizer of this rally in Toronto. There's 30 other cities holding rallies today to demand, one, basically an inquiry, an independent parliamentary inquiry into how the election became tainted last year, as well as a criminal investigation. Obviously, several sections of the Elections Act were violated, up to that could include 5 years in prison. And the third thing we're looking for is either a suspension of Parliament or new elections. Basically, suspension of Parliament while the investigation occurs, so they can't pass laws like that authoritarian Bill C-30, the warrantless spy bill law, so they can't pass it while this occurs because they may be illegitimately in power, or at least just brand new elections, 6 million phone calls, man, there's a high probability that people did not go and vote. The thing is, if you're a disabled person, you have a wheelchair, crutches, I don't know, whatever, you're disabled, and you're told that it's 5 kilometers away, you know what I mean? Your chances are you might be low income, you can't afford a taxi, you may not go vote.
We have seen a number of ridings across Canada where it is pretty clear that election fraud did occur. In fact, the number of ridings where reports of questionable activities or live and robocalls happened has grown to 77. That's 25% of Canada.
Even though it was a majority government, it was a very narrow win into that. I think 6 million calls were expectedly made. I'm not sure how many Canadians have confirmed and come out and said that they've received calls. Last I heard it was over 30,000 or something. But yeah, definitely if somebody calls you and tells you to go vote somewhere else and you can't vote there and then the polls close, how many of those non-conservative votes weren't cast?
For a long time now in Canada, the mainstream political parties don't represent Canadians. They represent corporate and banking interests. I believe the only thing that Canadians can do at this point is to get politically involved and vote for an alternative candidate, either an independent or somebody like the Canadian Action Party.
I'm Chris, a reporter from the Canadian Action Party.
Oh, hey, nice to meet you.
We always spread your stuff out.
Oh, good stuff.
Doing a good job.
Good stuff. Yeah, yeah. I'm glad to see that you're going for that riding Danforth area, right? Yeah, good stuff.
Definitely.
I've seen some signs around talking about dirty tricks. This isn't dirty tricks. What we've seen over the last few weeks is evidence of systematic fraud. That is a crime under the Canada Elections Act, and the only acceptable outcome, if there's been systematic fraud in ridings, is new elections.
Forget everything that you learn about politics. The people are writing a new world order. Many people died from where I came from just to give a lesson to governments that want to tell them that the power of the people will prevail one day.
Canada is a country that's looked upon around the world as being a leader in democracy. We help other countries set up democracies and support them, and so if we're doing that, we have to have the utmost of integrity, and I think that's lacking right now, and I think Mr. Harper has been less than forthcoming. I would expect the Prime Minister to be as angry and as upset about this as all the people here are, and I haven't seen that from him. So it just casts more doubt on the entire situation. They can come out to protests like this, they can write letters to their MPs and even their MPPs and any level of government. It's free to write a letter to your MPP. You can go on social media sites like Twitter, Facebook, or any of those, and just voice your opinion. That's part of democracy. A democracy is only as good as the people that are in it. And if people are silent, then the crooks are allowed to get away with it.
Most Canadians are apathetic to politics. They don't even bother voting anymore. So it doesn't surprise me that they feel comfortable enough in manipulating federal elections. Canadians need to get politically involved, and they need to do something about, the current situation in politics, which is bought and sold.
Everyone just needs to spread the information and organize rallies like this, get people mobilized. Write your MPs, call your MPs, get on their asses and basically be such a pain to them that they'll realize this isn't going to go away unless we do something about this. We're not going to get the vote of these voters. Like many others, been inspired by Press for Truth and other members of the alternative media to get out and start bringing the news that the mainstream media isn't going to tell you.
Canadians deserve to have the truth, and I think we want the truth. That's why we're here today.